Now, before we move on to the State of the Union, I wanted to take a moment to discuss the gloomy state of the mainstream press. Now, it's no secret that network evening news continues to lose influence. The so-called big three networks, and ABC, NBC, and CBS lost nearly 20 million viewers since 1980. And that's more than half of the audience that they once enjoyed. Now, the cable networks have picked up the slack, but despite lofty mottos like fair and balanced, partisan and divisive seems to be the name of this game. And news does take a backseat to spin and opinion, and you can barely hear the real issues over the shouting of the talking heads. Now, from 1983, 90% of the U.S. media was owned by 50 companies. Last year, that number shrank to 6. Just think about that. 6 mega corporations like GE and Disney owning 90% of the media that you consume. Now, of course, print journalism is no exception, struggling to stay relevant at a time when tweets, blogs, and online media floods through the gates, which the newspapers once kept. And it's not just influence, but revenues and readership that newspapers are losing. Now, it seems like there has been a transformation of sorts, from watchdog journalism to lapdog journalism. Corporate officials, war generals, lobbyists, senior administration officials are all taken at their word, treated with respect. Those who lack good standing with the establishment are marginalized, ridiculed. Just think of Occupy Wall Street, Ron Paul, Julian Assange, which of course brings me to WikiLeaks.
Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260s.
Come on, fire.
Now, the release of this video, the collateral damage video showing an Apache helicopter attack in Baghdad, ended the era when journalists were the ones to decide which leaks would see the light of day. When the video was released, the establishment press balked. We here at RT covered the story the day that it broke, and we put Julian Assange on air. At first, the other outlets stayed away from him. After all, Assange was described as a terrorist by our very own government. But it seems that market interests took over, and then everything changed. Before long, Julian Assange became a media darling, gracing the screens of the cable networks. NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. Major publications even partnered up with WikiLeaks to catalog and help release countless previously secret documents. Now, it's no stretch of the imagination to say that Julian Assange is a somewhat controversial figure. He's been driven off the internet, deprived of funding, placed under house arrest, and all this as he fights extradition attempts over sexual allegations. But whether you love or hate the man, it's hard to deny that his actions and WikiLeaks forever changed the face of the media as we know it. Now, 2 years ago, we invited Mr. Assange to speak on air. And in about 2 months, we're going to bring him back. Starting in March, Julian Assange is going to host a 10-part series of interview programs on this network. Now, you can love it, you can hate it, you can watch it, you can even skip it. The decision is yours, the show is his. The topics are of his own choosing. So I found it a little bit odd to understand the headlines when I woke up this morning. The Kremlin's mouthpiece, selling out to the Russian government, a Kremlin pawn. The Cold War, Part 2? Now, it's funny, I didn't really see those kinds of headlines when the major papers worked with WikiLeaks to release information, nor do I recall allegations of Julian Assange as some sort of General Electric stooge after he appeared in MSNBC. But I guess as the saying goes, all's fair in love and war. And I suppose when you're bleeding dollars, viewers, and ratings, it's easier to throw mud at others than to clean up here at home.